There's a great story about a young man who was taking the exam to become a captain in the British Royal Navy. And the exam was notoriously difficult, but when he sat down to take it before the admirals, one of them asked him this question: Imagine you're on a ship and the wind's blowing you to the rocks. What would you do? And the man said he would turn the ship the other way and add another sail. The admiral wasn't happy with this answer and said to him, The wind's blowing even stronger, pushing you back to the rocks. What do you do? Again the man says, I would turn the ship the other way and add another sail. This happens again and again and again. More wind, more sail, more wind, more sail, more wind, more sail. Finally, the admiral stops him and says, Where exactly do you think you're getting all this extra sail from? The man replies, The same place you're getting all your wind from, sir. The point of the story is that sometimes it doesn't matter as much what you think, but more how you think. It's very interesting in relation to this week's Parsha, Vayikra, beginning the book of Vayikra. It starts out with that word, but it's strange. God calls to Moses. Usually we see Vayomer, God spoke to Moses, but this week, Vayikra, God called to him. Rashi notes that this word, it has a connotation of the special affection, the special relationship God felt towards Moshe Rabbeinu. And it's interesting, this idea of calling. It always sounded strange and foreign to me, almost un-Jewish. I would hear about it often when I did interfaith work, when I met with members of other clergy, of other faiths, and they would speak about being called to service, being called to God. But rarely, if ever, did I hear a rabbi use that language. But its foundation is right here. It's this week in our Parsha. We see the idea of being called to God. Even though we don't hear about it often in Jewish thought, there's one modern Jewish writer who wrote extensively about this, about finding your purpose. Viktor Frankl, who survived the Shoah, he lived through the darkest shadows of human history. And what he noticed, he says, is that those who had a purpose in life, those who had meaning, who felt they had something to live for, were more likely to survive. And when he was surviving in Auschwitz, he helped others by helping them to find their meaning, to find their purpose. He taught that the way to find happiness in life is to not ask what we want from life, but instead to ask what life wants of us. What are we called to do? Today, many of us are faced with a choice. It's a troubling time, but we can see things as either half empty or half full. It's as simple as that. It's a question not of what we think, but of how we think. The story I began with is more important than ever. Life is hard in isolation. But the question we have to ask ourselves is, how are we going to frame it? Are we stuck at home? Or is now an opportunity to connect more deeply with those we live with? An opportunity for family meals, for movies and games? Have I been given the gift of free time to call old friends or relatives I've lost touch with? Have recent events given me the ability to see more clearly the things in my life I hold dear, to treasure them more deeply, to appreciate them more lovingly? Is the cup half empty or half full? Moses had a purpose. He gave up a lot. He sacrificed for a life of service to others, of building a family, creating a community, building a sacred connection with God. But his life was filled with purpose. He heard the call. This Shabbat, the task for each of us is to listen more closely, to try to hear our own call, to find our purpose. In these troubled times, take a moment this Shabbat. Turn off your distractions. Try to tune out your anxieties, your fears. Listen for that call. How are we going to think about this event? How are we going to come together? How are we going to use this opportunity we've been given? Or are we just going to be miserable? Are we just going to be bitter? Are we just going to be angry? This Shabbat, listen for that call. Hear your purpose. Find your meaning, your reason for being here. And then go do it. Shabbat Shalom.